Welcome back to the Late for Loadin podcast. I'm Chris. I'm here with my co-host Josh, and on this week's episode, we have one of the most legendary people in the metal world, Brian Slagel of Metal Blade Records. And my God, what an absolute fucking legend this guy is.
I could not believe the stories he was telling about all the stuff he'd been a part of.
It's wild that he has been involved in so many major moments in metal history, and he's just like the most chill, least amount of ego I've ever experienced in my entire life. He's literally just the nicest guy. It's wild.
And a fellow sports memorabilia collector, which if you can't tell, I am also a very
dedicated.
I'm an addict.
We'll call dedicated it dedicated to the cause.
Dedicated to the cause and the craft.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he's a big sports guy. Some of the guys in TGI got to know him because of his love for hockey. Yep, and the Vegas Golden Knights. And so they run literally just last night, Vigil texted our band chat and said that he ran into Brian at a Golden Knights game and was just talking about how nice Brian is. He's just the coolest guy. And he, for me, being a massive Metallica fan,
I was waiting for you to go there.
Yeah, he put out a compilation called Metal Massacre, which featured the first recorded music of Metallica ever. That's crazy.
It's insane.
And he's put out records from metal mainstays and legends like Cannibal Corpse. He was on the forefront of like the early 2000s metalcore with the Unearths and the As I Lay Dyings, and he's watched all of the ebbs and flows and changes and evolutions of metal and rock music over the past 30-40 years. He really is just like he's deep within the DNA of all of this stuff that we all love.
Makes you wonder if someone like him never came along, would music in our industry, our side of the industry, our genre be what it is today? That's
a very good question. To have somebody as involved as he was and kind of helped push it all to the forefront. Yeah, it definitely makes you wonder where we would be at now had he not decided to start Metal Blade Records or put out Metal Massacre or all these other things. It's wild to think about. But again, it's like you would never know that if you talk to him. He's just a very normal, down-to-earth dude. And it's super inspiring to see somebody who is, this far into his music career.
Still have a passion for it.
He loves it just as much as he ever did. Just the wisdom and experience he's got is crazy. So I genuinely think that this is going to be one that is pretty eye-opening for a lot of people.
Same.
And I mean, there's literally something in here for everybody because Brian has been through and done it all. And so I hope you enjoy this week's episode with Brian Slagel of Metal Blade Records. This episode of Late for Loadin is brought to you by Rockabilia.com, your go-to destination for 100% official band merchandise. No bootlegs, no cheap knockoffs, just authentic gear straight from the bands you love. From metal and punk to classic rock and beyond, Rockabilia has over 500,000 items in stock. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, patches, and even rare, hard-to-find collectibles. If you're looking for something exclusive, Rockabilia drops brand new limited edition merch every month. So if you see something you like, grab it before it's gone. And in fact, we just placed an order for some new merch ourselves. I picked up a very, very cool Linkin Park Meteora hoodie. Josh, did you grab something?
Yeah, I grabbed a couple things. I got a super limited Eminem tour shirt, and then what you mentioned not missing out, I saw a Meatloaf tour shirt from 2005 that I really, really wanted. Unfortunately, I didn't have my size, so I missed out on that one.
Well, there you have it. Don't wait. Our friends at Rockabilia are hooking up Late for Loadin' listeners with 10% off when you use code LOAD at checkout. So if your band T collection needs a refresh and you want to support the artists who make the music we love, hit up rockabilia.com, load up your cart, and drop in code LOAD, L-O-A-D, for that sweet discount. Now let's roll today's show. Mr. Brian Slagel, welcome to the Late for Loadin' podcast. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Should be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you are a Vegas resident, at least part-time anyway, and I saw that you were just at the Eagles at the Sphere the other day. How was that?
Oh, it was great. It was great. I saw U2 3 times at the Sphere.
Wow.
I mean, the first time was still it's like nothing else I've ever seen in my entire life. I've been to over
Right.
6,000 concerts, and this was just so completely insane. But I like the Eagles a lot. I haven't seen them yet, but I just kind of randomly. I wasn't supposed to be in town. I was going to fly in Saturday night. I get on Friday, and I was like, "Oh, the Eagles are playing." And there's a bunch of the NHL's doing their player media tour here in Vegas this year, as they always do it. I'm good friends with a whole bunch of the media guys. So one of my buddies was in town, and I just said, "Hey, you want to go see the Eagles?" He's like, "Sure." He's only been to the Sphere for the NHL draft, so seeing an actual show there, of course, is a whole different animal.
I still haven't been yet, but every time I see somebody, it's so wild how much that, like, how immersive that, you know, I want to stop short of calling it a video wall, because it's not a wall, it's literally a video sphere. But it's so wild how immersive it is that even when somebody takes like a cell phone video, it's still so convincing that it's like more than just that venue.
But you know what? The anything you see online, whether it's cell phone footage or whatever, it does not do it justice.
I can imagine.
It's just so overwhelming. It's basically like when we went from SD television to HD television like 1,000 times. It's just it's insane. IMAX times 1,000.
Right.
Chris is waiting on Metallica to announce that they're going to be there, and he's going to do whatever it takes. To get there. He'll kill anybody.
If I have to give up one of my kids, I would consider it at very least. You know?
Probably up for discussion.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't want to give this away to too many people because it's my little hack. But if you wait to the day of the show, you can usually get some pretty reasonable deals on stuff. But Metallica is a whole separate thing because
that's going to be whenever they decide to do that, that's going to be gone instantly.
Well, there'll still be after sales and stuff, but I didn't really think about this until somebody mentioned it. I mean, they don't play arenas anymore. They're only playing stadiums. And a lot of times, two times at a weekend. So it's 140, 160,000 tickets. So for them to play in a 20,000 seat arena is going to be pretty intense. So hopefully they will announce it soon. But
they're going to have to do like 20 days in a row.
No, I'm curious because I'm curious to see. And I've heard a lot of information from very reliable sources about the.
I've also seen interviews where Lars said they're not interested in like a residency type situation.
No,
they are interested in the Sphere from what he has said, but they don't want to basically set up shop there forever, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think, that's the interesting thing, because I mean, the first time I went to see U2, I texted him because Metallica and U2 are super tight. They've always been really close. And I know he was there for the opening night. So I texted him and said, "Hey, I'm going to see U2 tonight. It's Fear." He said, "You got to let me know what you think." I'm all right. So after the show, he texted me and he said, "What do you think?" I go, "I need a night to just process
it
this."
all. Yeah.
So we talked the next day, and he loved the Sphere, he loved the experience. Said it's a game changer. So I could just kind of tell from the way he was talking that at some point they're going to do it, but they're definitely not a residency band at all. But I've heard the number of dates, and it's a little bit more than I would expect. But I'm going to imagine it's going to be over the course of a year or two, or they'll play 4 shows and then they'll go. I don't know. I'm not really sure because I don't know any information. But they're playing a reasonable amount of dates. But I'm going to imagine it's to be spread over a long period of time because they still have to do their normal touring cycles and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, this whole 72 season cycle that they've been on in general has been stretched out, over multiple years now. Anyway, so I imagine no problem. Yeah, I mean, when you're at that level and you can do it, why would you not? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, Chris, go on and file paperwork and put one of the kids up because it's coming at some point.
You know what this has brought to mind for me, Brian, and I'm kind of interested what you think because I know it's a bit of a hot button topic with some Metallica fans. But did you enjoy, what was the movie? Was it the Through the Never movie that they put out in theaters?
It's funny you mentioned that because
I liked it. I thought it was cool, but I'm also like a super fan, so it's hard to upset me with that stuff.
Well, here's the thing with that, and the reason I brought it up because I do a podcast as well called 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal, and I just did an episode on Spit Out the Bone, which is a newer Metallica song, which I absolutely love.
A great song.
I was explaining, and I had the producer on, Greg Fiddleman, who's the producer now, who I've known for a long time.
Right.
Even longer than I expected that I knew him, because it's a long story. I won't get too much into it. But I was up there when they were doing Death Magnetic, and at the end of the day, I said, "Hey, it's really nice to meet you." And he said, "We've met before." And he looked super familiar, but I couldn't figure it out. He was the rhythm guitar. He was not the rhythm guitar. He's the lead guitar player in this band called Rhino Bucket that I used to go see all the time in the clubs in LA in the early 90s, I guess it was. But he had long hair, so he cut off all his hair.
Right.
But so that movie, Through the Never, I went to the premiere or before parties or friends and family thing or whatever. It's in New York, and I watched it. And two things that were weird about that movie was not weird, but first of all, the production of the music was amazing. That's
incredible.
I thought that's like the best they've ever sounded.
Yes.
And then, like everybody, I thought the concert footage was amazing. The narrative is what it is, but it was what it was. But two things about that. The first person I saw afterwards was James, and I said, I don't know who did the music, but whoever did that, you guys should use, because he's phenomenal. And he said, yeah, this guy, Greg Fiddleman, who was basically became their engineer on Death Magnetic through Rick Rubin. And now, of course, he's doing all the albums. He's also doing a lot of their live stuff, because, they record every live show and they release it more or less.
Tour with them now also?
He doesn't go on the road with them as much, but he gets the tapes. And he was telling me there's a whole team of people, and he mixes some of the stuff, and some of the other people mix some of it. But it's pretty amazing. But yeah, he's phenomenal, because I think those last two records are probably the best two sounding Metallica records ever.
I completely agree. It's cool that they're back to having really great sounding records because of how much of an impact sonically. I mean, obviously, songs-wise, Black Album is with massive success, right? But sonically, I feel like it set the bar for metal records for a long time too. So it's cool that they're back to like cutting edge, like kind of leading the charge for what a modern metal record should sound like. So good on them.
Yeah, the other real funny story, and this just kind of gives you a little bit of an insight into how those guys are and how they're still like really down to earth. And so I was talking to one of the management. We were talking about the movie and just kind of talking about it. And I go, why not just do a concert film? Because I think a lot of us fans, just the concert footage was incredible. Why not just do that?
Yeah, the production they had for it was insane.
Yeah, but the management said that the band felt that people would be bored if it was just them at a concert.
Oh, like, come on.
Really? He was serious. And I know for the fact that that's what the band thought. They didn't want people to get bored. So that, we'll put a narrative in there, kind of like, Song Remains the Same or whatever other movies like that. So that's why they did that. I was like, really? I don't think anybody would have minded.
Yeah, I think that your sold out stadiums would say otherwise, guys. Right. But you know what? What are you going to do? I respect the fact that they tried something different, and I thought it was cool. Is it something that I'm going to watch all the time? No, but did I enjoy it when I saw it in theaters and there was Metallica blasting on a big screen through a sick sound system? No, it was fucking awesome. That was great. So I don't know. I was curious what your thoughts were on that, because I know it can be so divisive for some people.
I mean, it is what it is, and like I said, I thought the concert footage stuff was great. The narrative, it had its moments, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to dig in a little bit to like how you got to where you are today, and kind of like your path through, the industry as a whole, how you even got here, how you became Brian from Metal Blade, basically. And I guess the best place to start is like, where are you originally from, and how did you even find your way into music in the first place? Just in the very did you grow up in a musical household? Was it like friends at school that got you into it? Like what was it for you? First of all,
I'm in this new podcast studio here that I built in my house, but I'm very jealous of your lighting. I'm going to need to get some lighting tips from you guys afterwards, because I had another podcast thing that the lighting was really great, and this is the same lighting that I have there, but it's really weird. But anyway, that's a whole other story. You can edit that out if you want. Okay. So I grew up in Los Angeles, California.
Okay.
Yep. I was not Woodland Hills, to be specific.
Yeah, cool. I have cousins that live actually in Woodland Hills off of Shoup Avenue.
Oh, I was right there. Shoup and Ventura.
Road, whatever.
Yep.
Okay, interesting.
Anyways, not a musical family at all. My mom played piano in church a little bit, but that was it. I didn't grow up around music. We didn't really listen to a lot of music. I had a stepfather for a minute, and he liked Jerry Reed and Johnny Cash, so I kind of listened to that stuff. I was a sports guy. I played baseball from like 5 to 18, and
us too.
I played everything. The only thing I didn't get to play, sadly, is my favorite sport, hockey, because we did not have a lot of money, and it was really expensive. It still is expensive to play hockey with the uniforms and everything. But I played park football and park basketball, and I was in tennis team in high school, and like I said, I played baseball forever. Unfortunately, I went to Taft High School, and the year that myself and a couple of my friends who played park league got to high school was the year after Robin Yount left, and he's Hall of Fame baseball player. So the coaches were a little not nice to us. So that was kind of not a good experience. But I was not a music person at all. I tried, for whatever reason, my mom gave me banjo lessons of all things. And I was terrible. I could not do it. It hurt my fingers like terrible. It was really, really difficult. Yeah. We still had band when I was in school, so I played the trombone, and not very well. And I tried to play guitar because I started to get into music when I was 11. One of my friends, I was friends with him, and I was over in his room. And he said, "Hey, I want to play you this album that I just got. That's really cool. Let me know what you think." And it was Deep Purple's Machine Head.
Nice.
And I'd never heard anything like that before. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? This is incredible. So I got into that. And then a couple weeks later, my neighbor said, hey, if you like Deep Purple, you should listen to Black Sabbath. So I got into Black Sabbath, and then it was pretty much downhill from there.
Right.
But I tried to play guitar. I made my mom buy me an electric guitar, and I couldn't. I took lessons. I just had zero talent. Best I could do is a 4/4 beat on the drums. Barely. That's all I
can't even do that. I can't even get that far.
Yeah. So clearly, as I became more and more of a music fan, I started bootlegging shows. I was the kid that sneaked the tape recorder in and tape everything. I went to 250 concerts one year. I went to everything because I wanted to tape it, because I knew I'd sell the Capitol Records swap meet and some of the other swap meets. Basically, I was just selling these tapes.
The live albums.
Yeah, live concerts. But I was selling these tapes just because I needed money to buy albums. So all the money I made doing all that, I ended up buying as many albums as I could and going to as many concerts as I could. So that really got me into music. But I was into everything. Like when I was in high school, I would go to all the local LA punk shows. The Germs, Black Flag, when the Go-Go's were punk, Wall of Voodoo, the Dead Kennedys, because they would come out here a couple times a month, and they were my favorite punk band. I was also into like new wave stuff, like Oingo Boingo and this band called the Cats, and a whole bunch of that kind of new wavy stuff in LA and in 79, 80. And then I was into, some of the metal stuff too, like this band Exciter, not the Canadian band, but George Lynch was the guitar player, who of course ended up in Dokken, and most of that first Dokken record are all old Exciter songs.
I never realized that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like Paris is Burning and all that stuff. But what really changed me was a friend of mine. I was trading tapes with a guy in Sweden, and he sent me an AC/DC live tape from like 1978 or something or other. He said,
"How did you trade tapes with a guy in Sweden?"
That's what I was going to ask.
That back then.
Yeah, there were like, you could go to the back of Circus Magazine or Hit Parade or whatever the magazines were back then.
In the day.
And also, I was just such a big music fan. And being in LA, I could get Sounds, which was the local, the English paper that was weekly. And in the ads in the back, there were people, saying, hey, I have concerts to trade or whatever. So, and just through the network, I just kind of started to know. I had a pretty big collection, so I started to know a lot of people. But he sent me this AC/DC tape, and he said, hey, at the very end of this, there's this brand new band that just put out an EP, and the band's called Iron Maiden. I thought you might like them.
So these were live tapes as well. You guys were trading live tapes? Okay.
Yes. And he put the Soundhouse tapes basically on the end of that. And when I heard that, I was like, what is this? Changed my life.
Crazy.
And then I figured out that there was a scene called the New Wave of British Heavy Metal, which of course, Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, Saxon, Diamond Head, so many bands came from. I just became completely obsessed with that scene over in England, which was not easy to do for a kid living in Los Angeles. Ended up working at a record store, which was, that also helped change my life, because I convinced the owner to let me bring in all the music that I was trying to get myself from Europe. So he let me do that. Started to sell tons of it. We became like the metal hangout in LA. Like every single band from, Motley Crue, Rat on down would come up and hang out at the store, Jakey Lee, and just kind of everybody. But I couldn't play an instrument, so I just kind of did everything else. I started the first ever U.S. heavy metal fanzine called the New Heavy Metal Review, REVUE. Don't ask why. I was working at the record store. I was helping program the local 1 hour metal show every week. And then also one of my friends who used to buy records came in one day and said, hey, there's a metal scene in LA. I said, there is? He said, yeah. So the first show I went to was Motley Crue and Rat at the Troubadour on a Wednesday for $1.
That's fucking crazy.
I was like, oh, wow, there are metal bands here. So got into that scene, started to realize that, there are a bunch of good bands playing in LA, but nobody cared. This was, 1981. Nobody knew anything about, there's no internet, there's no nothing. So this scene just kind of lived in a vacuum, like nobody knew about it at all. And, I was doing what I could with the fanzine and, like we wrote the first Motley Crue article for Sounds because we knew the LA correspondent and on. And I just was so frustrated. I was so influenced by the new wave of British heavy metal. And there were these compilation albums that they came out, like Metal from Others and a few other ones. And I got, well, maybe if I could put together a compilation of LA heavy metal bands. So I went to distributors that I was buying import music from and said, if I do this, would you guys distribute it? And they all said, sure. And I had no money. I basically scraped together a little bit of money that I had. And then my friend John Cornarens, who kind of helped as well, we got enough money together to make 2,500 copies of a record just to do something to help. And that, of course, was the first Metal Massacre, which had Rat and Bitch and Malice and a whole bunch of bands on there. And this other band that we were just talking about called Metallica. And so the famous story with that was that Michael Schenker's show in December of 1980 at the Country Club, which was the big venue in Southern California, Reseda, California, he played. And that night was crazy because all the guys from Metallica were there, didn't know each other. All the guys from Motley Crue were there, didn't know each other. Everybody pretty much was there early. But my friend, who I mentioned earlier, John Cornarens, he went to go to his car after the show and saw a kid wearing a Saxon European t-shirt. Now, in 1980 in LA, nobody knew who Saxon was, let alone had a European t-shirt. So he runs over to this kid. He goes, where did you get that shirt? And he goes, you know who Saxon is? He said, yeah, my friend Brian are huge fans. So that turned out to be Lars Ulrich. And he
so crazy,
so completely random, right? So he had just moved to Southern California from Denmark because his father was a famous tennis player, and they moved here. I think they're trying to get Lars to play tennis some more, but we just became really good friends because I don't think he ever imagined in a million years he's going to move to Southern California and there'd be two kids that were in the same music he was. So we just hang out, listen to music, the whole thing, and then he famously went to England in '81 and hung out with Motorhead and Diamond Head and all these bands. So he came back and he decided to start a band. And I was in the process of putting together this compilation album. And he said, if I put together a band, can it be on your record? I'm like, sure. And that's how Metallica started.
Wow.
And then they went on to become the biggest band in the world.
Yeah, they've done okay. They've done okay.
Yeah.
So putting this compilation together, is that what inspired you to start Metal Blade, or did it come?
You know what? I never intended to start a record label. I just did that really just to help the scene. That was it. It's actually the New Heavy Metal Review presents Metal Massacre. I thought I was going to be a journalist. So that's what I went to school for. And, it was really good in English. I got A's in English, and I'm a pretty good writer. And I was writing for Kerrang as well, and a couple other places. So I kind of thought I'd be a journalist, and I had made every mistake possible with that record. I, only made 2,500 copies, had no money left. We licensed to this other company that put it out that never paid us and went bankrupt, and a million things. But this distributor who I also told Motley Crue when they came to my house and said, hey, their management said, we have 900 Motley Crue records. What do we do with them? I said, take them to this distributor, Green World. They'll help you. If I knew then what I know now, right? So I knew these guys at Green World, and the same thing with Rat. They went over there as well, and they said, well, you don't have any money, but you seem like you kind of know bands. We'll give you what's called a pressing and distribution deal, meaning that if you could bring us the music, we'll manufacture it, press it, and distribute it for you, so you can do that. So I just started asking bands. I had no money. I just started asking if you guys can go in the studio and record something, I could put it out. And slowly but surely, Bitch did something, and then Armored Saint did something, and then we did Metal Massacre 2, and slowly over time, it kind of became a label. About 3 or 4 years later, really, it was just me all by myself and my mom's in the back of my mom's garage in Woodland Hills, California, with no air conditioner. Where it's 106 degrees in the summertime.
What does she think when all this stuff is going on, and you're, essentially manufacturing records out of her garage. What does she think?
Yeah, it's definitely a less than conventional career path for your child.
Well, she was pretty cool with everything because I was always a good student. I never got into trouble or anything like that. So I didn't drink until I was 21 or anything like that. So I was a pretty good kid. So as long as I was a good kid and got good grades, she was like, you can do whatever you want. But I did have to, at some point, I was working at the record store, doing the fanzine, doing the promoting, all these different things, and trying to go to college at the same time. And it was just impossible. And my grades started to slip a little bit. So I finally went in. I thought she was going to kill me. I went in one day and said, hey, I think I'm going to take a semester off of college just to see where this music thing goes, waiting for the earth to shake. And she's like, okay. Right. As long as if it doesn't work out, you promise you'll go back. I said, I promise I'll go back if it doesn't work out. So
okay,
I never went back. So
good on mom. That's a good mom.
Yeah, she was awesome.
I want to touch on something we've talked about this on a few episodes now, so it's a bit like beating a dead horse. But I think
so.
I think
you get different perspective. I like it.
Well, yeah, I think he's in a unique position to give us a different perspective than everyone else. But you talked about tape trading and like working at a record store and like all this physical media and like. I feel like there is this, this connection with music that younger people these days just don't have because they have instant access to whatever they want at any time on their phone. If there's something's not clicking within the first 5 seconds, they can skip to the next thing. Whereas like, I'm obviously younger, but I, grew up where I would go buy a CD and I lived with that CD until I could afford to go buy another CD. And I either hated it or I listened to it so much that I just ended up loving it. But either way, I gave it more than one chance. And I feel like, I don't know. How do you view this whole new landscape of everything? And it's so different from like the tape trading days or like working at a record store and going and buying a vinyl. Like, I don't know. What is it like coming from a label perspective?
Yeah, it's interesting about all of this stuff. And trying to get too convoluted here. But when file sharing was happening and the music industry was imploding, basically, we didn't get angry at the kids or the fans, because I understood that. Like I remember buying a record for $20 for one good song, and I just wasted $20 on a record that sucks.
Right.
And what the file sharing did is you had to make a good record if you want somebody to even remotely think about buying it. You had to make it good because everybody could hear it. And that's ushered in this whole this whole thing of all the music streaming services and everything else, where everybody can listen to anything at any time they want to, which I as a fan love it. I love it. I love that I can be anywhere in the world and pop into Apple Music or Spotify and listen to something. I can be on a plane, like, I want to hear this thing, and so that access is great. I don't have to log CDs and records around. I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm still old school. I still have all my vinyl. I still buy vinyl constantly. But what's interesting is we still sell a lot of vinyl. And I've noticed that maybe it's skipped a generation-ish, but, at first when vinyl came back, I think a lot of kids were just buying it just for the novelty of it. It's cool. Right. But then they started to listen to it. And, everybody grew up, listening to music in earbuds. All of a sudden you got a vinyl and a record player, a couple speakers, and you put it on. It's like, wow, it's like I'm at a concert. It's there. You can feel the music,
Right.
So people got into it that way. And now it's come around where, to give you an example, my girlfriend's daughter's 13. And she's now a full-fledged vinyl junkie. Just out of nowhere, like I didn't have anything to do with it. She didn't really, she kind of discovered this vinyl thing because all of her friends were into it as well. And now she's getting into like super heavy stuff too. Like she's been all over the map musically, but now she's like, her favorite band is Slipknot. And they went and saw Falling in Reverse and whoever else was on that bill, a bunch of stuff. But now she's even gotten more. Now all of a sudden she's into Cannibal Corpse. Which is that's a whole other level. But she loves listening to the records, and her preferred way to listen now is to listen to records. I have a lot of friends that also have kids around that same age that are saying the same thing. So it's kind of because again, when you get into music and stuff, you hold like you with CDs or whatever, you hold it in your hand. It's tangible, and people like that now. So it's kind of coming full. It's kind of coming full circle, and we still sell a ton of CDs too, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was something special about the artwork and everything that you could just absorb and be a part of that. But to go back to your vinyl point, I am not a vinyl head, never have been. My mom had a bunch of vinyl growing up, but I never really paid attention to vinyl because it was before my generation. And then my generation was CDs and iPods and that stuff, I think, right? And tape. Yeah. We had tapes. Vinyls were before tapes.
And then CDs, yep.
Yeah, so I manage bands now. A bunch of my bands, obviously, we press vinyl, and I get sent a bunch of vinyl to, so I just a couple weeks ago bought a nice vinyl player with a nice set of speakers. I just started listening to vinyl, and I texted Chris the other day.
Literally yesterday.
It was yesterday. I told him, I get the hype now. It sounds so much better.
Well, there's especially for heavier stuff. There's a warmness that you get with the guitar tones and everything that you can't get really in any other way, and that's why I love listening to vinyl to this day, because I just love the warm sound of that. And 90% of the time I'm listening to music, it's either in the background while I'm working or when I fly. I put music on. I read autobiographies. It's rock autobiographies mostly, but it's nice to get in and there's a new record. Like one of my favorite bands is Coheed and Cambria, who very excited about. I get to flying tomorrow to Dallas. They're playing there on Wednesday, and I haven't seen them on this run. And some of the nicest people on the planet too. It's such great guys. But I listened to the record for probably 2 or 3 weeks in headphones. And I do when I'm home. I like to listen in headphones. I have these Motorhead headphones, which are really old headphones, but they sound great for metal music. So I listened to the Coheed record for a couple of weeks, and I finally got the vinyl and went to listen to the vinyl. It's like just a whole different experience to feel that and hear that stuff. So
what I'm finding now is that I want to go in reverse now, and I want to get the vinyl from the 70s and listen to that, because I want to hear how it was intended to sound from its origination. That is fascinating to me. Like this Meatloaf record behind me, that was an original pressing, and I have the same record, just the picture disc of it, and I was listening to it just literally yesterday, and I'm listening to it fucking skip over and over and over again. But they say the picture disc the quality wasn't as good. Is that true?
No, especially the older ones. Like what I've noticed with the newer stuff, because colored vinyl is the whole big thing now.
Right.
And before, black was always the best sounding, but they've upgraded. Like you can, because we do all these different. Everybody does variants now. There's 100 different variants, and I've double checked 3 or 4 of them, from the black pressing vinyl to the variants. Really no difference. Picture discs are definitely better now, but the old picture discs were pretty awful. They look great, but they didn't really sound
that's how this was. It looks awesome.
It's
the
collector pieces
on a actual disc, but it just looks, I mean, it sounds like
the technology's come so much farther. I think they're able to make all that stuff look good and sound good at the same time.
So at what point then did Metal Blade form? At what point were you like, you know what, I'm going to turn this into something, and I'm going to did you always have this vision of it becoming what it was? No, it just happened.
I had no idea of anything. I had no business plan. I had no goals. All I was really doing at first is just doing it. And I was doing everything. I was doing, it was a one-man army for 3 years. And I just did literally everything. But I didn't really think about anything. All I thought about was, this is fun. It's helping out bands. The one thing that I've always kind of, all the way back to the early days, and especially working at the record store, I just love turning people on to music that they haven't heard before. And that was kind of the impetus behind really still what I do now. It's just fun to find a band that nobody's ever heard of and start working with them and helping them out and helping other people be able to listen to them. But back then there was no plan, there was no nothing. I didn't really think anything. That I just thought, I'm having fun, I'm doing it. Slowly but surely I started making enough money, like I'd finally move out of my mom's house. And but it didn't really become serious really until finally I was like, well, it's starting to get big enough where I can't do this all by myself anymore. Right. So I hired one of the major people in the early days of Metal Blade. This guy, Bill Matoyer, who was engineered on all this stuff. And it wasn't for him because he was a metal guy that had access to a studio that we could get in there for really inexpensive, which was not really hard to do back in the day. So he was a big help. So he kind of became the first employee-ish. And then we finally got an office and had another employee. So it was like, oh, we have an office and employee. I guess it's sort of becoming real.
This is a real thing.
But it was so slow or so long. It wasn't probably until we had like a staff of 5 or 6 or 7 people. I was like, oh, I guess this is kind of a label now.
Who was the first artist that was officially signed to the label?
So he signed my friends in Bitch first. They were person I mentioned earlier, mentioned about bands in LA who used to come to the records. That was the David, the guitar player from Bitch. And I became really good friends with them because we'd all go hang out at shows and stuff. So they became my really good friends. And then we did an EP with them and then a record. And then we did Armored Saint was the second band that we signed. And they were very important because we just did an EP with them. But through that EP and the fact that they were getting really big in LA, they signed to Christmas in a major label deal, which was really big for us because we're just the same thing, one man band, little tiny label. But they would go out in all these interviews and all these big magazines and the mainstream media and talk about, we came from this small label called Metal Blade.
Right.
And that kind of put the name out there a little bit. We're like, people were like, oh, what's that? And, that was a big help from there. And then, obviously Slayer came not too long after that. That was really the first big artists that we really had.
Right. So today we have the internet to help us promote the things that we have going on. And I would imagine it would be much easier today to start a label than it is back in the 80s. Like what were some of the biggest hurdles that you guys had to, I guess since it was a one-man thing for quite a while, but like what were the biggest hurdles of starting a label back then?
Money.
I know you said you said you didn't have any money, but like was there anything else that was like kind of holding you guys back? You kind of had to fight your way through?
I think an independent label back in the early 80s. I mean, there weren't very many of those in any genre of music.
Right.
There's a couple punk labels, and Epitaph came around the same time, and there's a few other small labels. Mike Varney had Shrapnel Records up in San Francisco. So there were very few of us out there. Megaforce, obviously. So it was just an uphill battle of just trying to get people to hear your music, really, because there's no internet, there's no real way to get stuff out there. We had, luckily there's college radio, and there started to be a whole bunch of fanzines around the world, and those people were really the lifeblood. But it was a bit of a struggle. But really, money was by far the biggest struggle of all, just because they didn't have any, and they had no way to get it. Like nobody's going to loan some 23-year-old kid that has no collateral, any sort of business loan, and nobody knew what the record business is back then either. So it was a long time. I think the one thing, and I talk about this in my first book, that pretty much almost killed the label. The only time I really thought that we were done was, again, being a vinyl junkie, and I loved vinyl, and we're kind of coming in to the point where CDs have come in. And everybody's telling me for about 6 months, like, you need to stop making vinyl or slow down because it's going to stop soon. I'm like, no way, vinyl's never going to go away. It's the greatest thing ever. So I never listened to anybody and just kept pressing vinyl. And within a week, every single record store in the entire country shipped all their vinyl back to the distributors and started only bringing in CDs. So all of a sudden, in a week, it meant from, we had a bit of a staff at that point, like probably 4 or 5 people, and we were making enough money to pay all our rent and all our bills and everything. All of a sudden, I owed our distributor $250,000 because the way the music business is back then, it was all on commission. So you sell these records, you get paid from the stores for that. But if they don't sell, they can ship them back and get credits. And so I just looked at the label people. I go, what am I going to do? And they help kind of structure it a little bit so it wasn't as terrible. But I was literally faced with, I don't know what to do. So what I did was, used to get those credit card applications. I filled out every single one of them, turned them all in. I think I got about 15 credit cards. And I just ran the company for about 6 or 7 months on the credit cards until we finally kind of got it turned around again. But that was the one time where I was thinking, like, that's probably going to be it. And that was like probably 87, 80. I forget exactly when it was, somewhere around there.
That's wild.
Yeah, that was scary.
What was it that broke through that started turning the ship again?
It just was a matter of time. I mean, metal was kind of taking off at that point, and it was starting to do pretty well. And once we did kind of go, okay, let's start manufacturing more CDs now, and especially because that was what everybody wanted. So it took about 6 or 7 months before, we kind of got back up to the sales we were having before, which were good. But to finally get rid of the debt and all of that stuff. But the only funny thing about that is I kept all the vinyl. I couldn't, everybody else is just like, because everybody thought vinyl's dead. It's never going to come back.
Right.
And everybody's like just destroying everything. I couldn't bear to destroy any of it. So I kept it all. And we had this warehouse in Phoenix, which had all of our stuff. And there's just massive wall of vinyl. And people would come in there and go, why are you keeping all this vinyl? I go, I can't destroy it. I love vinyl so much. I can't destroy it. So we kept it for, I don't know how many years until all of a sudden vinyl comes back.
I was going to say you can make a killing now on it.
Oh my God. Yeah. We sold everything out, and we ended up kind of having a little bit of a windfall back in the day. So
yeah.
So that at least that decision was good.
So was it more expensive to produce a CD than it was to produce a vinyl?
No, it was still, it was a little bit more to do vinyl. It wasn't,
okay.
Because you had more packaging and stuff, but CDs at first became expensive because we had to do those stupid long boxes.
Yeah, I just think about like the when the flat screen TV came out, it was like fucking 10 times what it costs now to get a flat screen. So I assume when vinyl first hit the market, it's probably high as shit to produce.
Yeah, it's really expensive now. It's because, there's not a lot of people have come online because everybody keeps thinking the vinyl is going to go away, but it's getting better now where there's more people out there doing it, but it's still really expensive. That's people complain about vinyl prices, but it's expensive.
Oh,
to
now?
make.
Yeah, now it's high.
Are you guys still dealing with like ridiculously long lead times on vinyl orders too?
It's still,
or has that chilled out a bit?
It's still long, but and I take no credit for this because I don't deal with any of this, but our people who deal with the manufacturing, they've kind of have a system now where we have like 3 or 4 places all over the world where we press stuff, and we we go in with our, we'll pay them a bunch of money up front, and we'll go in with our release schedule and go, okay, this is what we're looking at, so we can get things in. It's still, people don't understand how complicated it is. It's still about a 4-month process from the time a record's finished before we can actually put it out. And it's not just the vinyl. It's you've got to, get the manufacturing together. You've got to do the press releases. You've got to do all this stuff for the distributor to get it out to their stores. This whole big, in my opinion, stupid process. I don't know why we're still doing it this way, but it takes a while just to do anything because there's just so many different steps you have to do now. Even if you're not doing vinyl, just even to get something streaming up, you're still looking at about a 6-week time frame just to get something streaming and no physical product at all. So,
which is so wild because I feel like some of the major label artists have like a backdoor thing where they can sneak in something to release like next day and get all the big, like for instance, I know this one at least 99% certain I got this right, but Spirit Box did that song with Megan Thee Stallion. They told the Spirit Box camp like the night before that they wanted to release it the next day and they needed a mix. So the band had to go grab their producer to go back to the studio, mix it, send it in that night, and it came out on Spotify with like this whole big push the next day. But it's like, how do they have those backdoor loops?
You can definitely do that. I remember when Metallica was doing the Black album, and I spent a lot of time in the studio up there because they're recording in North Hollywood, and I was right next to my favorite sushi restaurant. So anytime I went for sushi, I would go, I see if those guys are around, so I'd hang out with them. And I was there kind of towards the end. The recording was sort of winding up, and they're looking at the mock-ups of the vinyl and all the artwork and everything. I go, so when are you guys going to put this out? They said, well, probably about 30 days from now. I said, 30 days? How is that possible? I go, oh, well, it's Metallica. It's the Black Album. They do whatever they want. I think it took them about 45 in reality, but
either way, that's still a crazy timeline.
Yeah.
Are there any bands you had an opportunity to sign and passed on that like you regret now? Or any that like the one that got away type of thing?
Today's show is sponsored by Bestronix Pro Audio. Let's be real. Your rig is only as solid as the cables running through it. Whether you're touring the world or building out your dream setup at home, you need quality cables that won't let you down. That's where Bestronix Pro Audio comes in. BTPA specializes in full tour rig builds, custom cabling solutions, and if you're the hands-on DIY type, they've got bulk cable and connectors so you can wire up your own setup exactly how you want it. Everything they make is road-tested, built to last, and trusted by the pros. And because you're part of the Late for Load-In crew, BTPA is giving you 10% off your order. Just use the code LFLI10 at checkout and save on the best cables in the business. So don't let bad cables kill your tone or ruin your set. Hit up btpa.com, lock in that discount, and keep your rig dialed and ready for the road. We all know that music isn't just sound, it's connection, it's healing, it's everything when you're feeling lost. That's why Late for Load-In is partnering with Heart Support, the nonprofit founded by Jay Klurs of August Burns Red to bring real, free peer support straight to you.
Are you feeling down and need someone to talk to? Just text Late for Load-In to 1-512-647-2871 and get connected with someone who understands, someone who gets how music pulls us through the hardest times. It's totally free, totally judgment-free, and 100% about supporting you through the music we love.
And if you're in a good place right now, you can be part of healing the scene. Heart Support is looking for volunteer repliers, fans like you, who want to help others through the power of music. You'll be trained to support fellow fans who are struggling and join a community built on connection, mental health, and the music that keeps us going.
And again, if you need support, text Late for Load-In to the number 1-512-647-2871. If you want to be support, sign up at heartsupport.com/volunteer. Together, we're making this scene stronger.
Today's episode is brought to you by you, our incredible listeners and patrons over at patreon.com/LFLIpod. By joining, you'll get early access to episodes, exclusive monthly giveaways featuring rare memorabilia from Josh and I's time on the road, and access to our patron-only music review and reaction live streams. But that's not all. You'll also get into the Late for Load-In Road Crew Discord, where you can connect with fellow fans, submit guest requests, and drop your questions for the show. The best part? It's just $1 a month. If you love what we're doing and want to help keep the show rolling, head over to patreon.com/LFLIpod and join the road crew today. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, everybody asks about Metallica, but that's one where it's like, I just didn't have any money, and they didn't have any money, so it's
Right.
it's all fine. They did okay, we did okay, it's all good. One of the ones I didn't really pass on, I just didn't go, was when Guns N' Roses was playing in LA. Like, everybody's like, you got to go see these guys, and I knew the manager, I knew everybody involved in that camp, but they looked to me like a glam band, and I hate glam. I hate that whole scene, so I just didn't go because I thought they're a glam band. So right. Appetite comes out. I'm sitting in our New York office, and I get the advance tape from Geffen. I put it in to the tape deck and turn it on. I'm like, what?
Son of a bitch.
Holy shit. But we ended up actually doing marketing and promotion for that record. We did. So back in the early 90s, when the major labels were signing all these, grunge and heavier bands, but they had no infrastructure to deal with, like the fanzines or the college radio people. So we put our hands up, like, hey, we'll help you. So we did Guns N' Roses, Alice in Chains, Aerosmith, Smashing Pumpkins, Faith No More. We did a lot of work early on those records. So, but the funny story about Guns N' Roses, where I'll never forget, it was 1988, and it was at an Iron Maiden Seventh Son of a Seventh Son listening party in Hollywood, and that's the first time I met Slash. And we start talking. Great guy. We start talking, and then we start, doing shots of Jack. So by towards the end of the party, we're both, pretty out of it. I think we're sitting on the floor at that point. And he turns and he asked me, he said, how come you never came to see us back when we were playing the clubs? I go, I thought you guys were a glam band, and I don't like glam. He's like, I hate that people, because I guess I wasn't the only one that thought that. He's like,
right.
I hated that. So I missed that one. Another one was Pantera, Cowboys from Hell.
No.
Yeah, I knew those guys really well because I used to do, there's a radio station called Z-Rock in Dallas that my buddy was the program director. So a lot of times I just go there and he'd let me take over the stage for like 5 hours and just play whatever I wanted to. And those guys would always call in and go, hey, we're Pantera. And this was, the glam Pantera, but super great guys.
Right.
So my friends who were managing Pantera at the time had the Cowboys from Hell record. And we had just done our deal with Warner Brothers. So we were just like freshly with a major label. But they had a number that they wanted that I was like, that's a big number. And I felt uncomfortable like asking Warner Brothers for that amount of money at that time, just because I don't want to go and like, hey, I got. Yeah. It turns out I probably should have done that, but it's all good. I've been good friends with all those guys. I just saw them actually last week, and I saw them for the Vegas show, and then I saw them in Dallas too. So that was good.
Nice.
This one is one that still kind of annoys me to this day. So one of a really good friend of mine that actually worked for Metal Blade for a while had moved over to Europe to tour manage bands. And he was in Sweden, and he said, hey, this band was opening for the band I'm working with, and here's the demo, and I thought they're really good, and I thought you might like it. It's Volbeat.
Yep.
I love the demo. I thought the demo was amazing. Our entire staff hated it. Hated it. None of them wanted to do it. So I'm kind of like, well, if the whole staff doesn't want to do it, then I can't make them do it. I mean, I suppose I could, but
Right.
I didn't feel, if they're not on board, I can't really be on board. So we passed, and my good friend Ed from Mascot Records made several $1 million on that one. So, but it's come full circle because we're now doing Michael from Volbeat, the main guy. We're doing his side project, Acid Hell,
cool.
death metal thing, which has done really well. So
They're so sick. I didn't even realize he was in that band until we just went on this tour we did with them this summer, and that band is also very sick. But the Volbeat guys are so awesome.
Yeah,
they're just
great.
the nicest dudes, the nicest guys.
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, when you guys were out with them, in Dallas, ended up, hanging out till 2:00 in the morning, just talking music with all those guys. Such great dudes, and super. And I love the last few Volbeat records too. I think it's amazing. But yeah, could have done that one. That was a bummer. And the only other one we kind of missed out on. I mean, there's a few things over the years where you go after and somebody else will grab it, but you'd be like, whatever. But the other one that I really wanted, and it was just the timing was just not good, was 9 Inch Nails.
Oh man.
Yeah, my girlfriend at the time was working at Caroline, and she got their early demo, like really early, and came home and played it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So I got a hold of their manager, and I talked to Trent for a little bit. They came to LA, and it was the first tour they ever did. I want to say they're opening for Skinny Puppy or somebody, but nobody knew who they were.
That would make sense.
Yes, I think it was Skinny Puppy. I can't remember, but it was Hollywood Palladium, so it was a fairly big show. And I talked to the manager. He was great. Talked to Trent. They were great. And we're at Warner Brothers, so I'm like, this is perfect. I'm going to take it into Warner's and go like, hey, there's this really, because nobody really knew who they were at that point.
Right.
I had this big meeting at Warner's, and they go, oh yeah, Irving Azoff knows about them. They're going to sign with him probably. So you're thanks, but the big boys are involved in this. I'm like, all right, well,
Ouch.
that's all right. They did okay, so it's all good.
Do you ever sit back? I'm just sitting here listening, and you're just naming off all these artists that are like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just.
I mean, culturally important is probably the best way to put it.
I don't even know what the word is, but do you ever sit back and just, reflect on all the years and all the bands that you've been a part of that have changed so many people's lives? Do you, because
Very
it's
rarely.
pretty, pretty amazing. And when you're sitting here talking, and I'm just listening, and I'm hearing, these casual stories, and it's just like, holy shit,
I mean,
guy,
all the bands and artists that like shaped me, that's for sure.
Me too, It just reminds me, I have a lawyer friend, we joke he's my grandpa, and his name's Mickey Shapiro, and he did all the Fleetwood Mac and all that, but it's very reminiscent of that. Like, I hear him talk about all these artists that just paved the way for so much.
Yep.
And it's just, I don't know, it's amazing. So I'm just sitting here wondering.
We had Mickey on the podcast also, and having him tell stories about like being in the room for We Are the World and like all this crazy. I'm like, wow. Like, and you're just telling this stuff like it's nothing. And I'm like mind blown by this.
Well, I mean, these are bands that, like you said, shaped us as human beings.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hearing these firsthand stories is pretty amazing. So
yeah, for sure.
I didn't know if you ever had a chance to sit back and reflect, and if not, then maybe you ought to sometime. You've been a part and done some really cool stuff.
Not too much. I mean, look, I'm very much in the present day and looking forward. I'm just a fan, like everybody else is, and I've been lucky enough to be able to do this. And the only time I really think about that is I've written 2 books, and the first one is basically the history of Metal Blade, and so going back and reliving everything was kind of going back and remembering some of the stories. That's what I was like. So this stuff is actually kind of cool, and the book did surprisingly really, really well. So much so that they made me write another book, which is just kind of more stories about all that sort of stuff. So that's the only time I really went back and reflect a lot with that. But it is cool to, because you just don't, you're this, being in a band too, you're just in your own little world creating things and putting it out on the marketplace. You don't know where it's going, like who's listening to it. And then you start to find out, like, movie stars, athletes, like all these different people are listening to this music, and you're like, oh wow, that's like these people that I look up to, are listening to music that I've helped create or be a part of, which is really cool. And or you just you go out and you meet people that say all those nice things about how important it was, and meeting just various people, like you guys, the same thing. And like this week is super fun for me because again, I'm a massive hockey fan, and that's my therapy, is to watch as much hockey as possible.
Totally, yeah.
For whatever reason, I've been kind of inducted or honorarily in with all these NHL media guys, like all the people you see on TV and NHL.com and everywhere, and I become really good friends with all of them. So they're all in Vegas this week, so I hung out with a bunch of them last night. I actually met the guy who does all of I forget what his he's like one of the top guys at Toronto Maple Leafs, and he was like super cool. And tonight we're doing a big dinner with those guys, so that's fun for me. When those are the kind of the benefits sometimes you get like doing something like this, where or I'm a big IndyCar fan, and you just start meeting people that are every sport there's a metalhead somewhere in there. So
absolutely,
it's fun.
Yep.
You guys know this as well.
Absolutely,
Yep.
yeah. Hearing that, you saying you try to stay in the present day triggered another question, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on the way the industry is moving and the way TikTok and social media have taken over the way that bands are growing and being discovered now. What are your thoughts there?
I love it. I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but they started laughing because I'm a huge TikTok person. I love TikTok. I'm on it probably more than any other social media thing. I don't post much on there because I like to kind of remain like anonymous because I love the algorithms. I found all these amazing bands I've never heard of on TikTok, and you see how just in our world, for example, how like Sleep Token and Ghost and Lorna Shore, all bands who blew up because of TikTok. And it wasn't anything that even the bands or the management or anything tried to do. Like the Ghost story, for example, this song Mariana Cross, it became this massive TikTok thing. Band didn't know about it, management didn't know about it, label didn't know about it. Tobias, who's the main guy from Ghosts, his daughter, who I think was 13 or 14, whatever she was at the time, was like, hey, Dad, you were all over TikTok. He's like, huh? He didn't even know what that was. And it's propelled them from being, a 6,000 to 8,000 seat headliner to now they're selling out arenas, and they just sold out an entire arena tour all by themselves, which is just incredible. And they started with us, so I love, seeing those stories, obviously. But I just love TikTok. And another funny story about that was I went to go see in Dallas, I saw Cattle Decapitation and Immolation. Sold out show at the Granada Theater. There's like 1,200 people or whatever it was. Yep. And they were commenting that on this tour, there are a lot of younger kids. And they were kind of wondering about that. I said, well, you know why that is? And they said, no. I said, TikTok. And they're like, well, we're not on TikTok. I said, I know you're not on TikTok, but your fans are on TikTok. And that's how a lot of these, and that's like I mentioned my daughter's, my girlfriend's daughter earlier. That's where she finds her and friends will find stuff out on TikTok all the time. So TikTok's become this huge thing that's really kind of like, we haven't had anything like this in a long time where it really moves the needle, where, before it was, MySpace or
that's what I was getting ready to say.
Or MTV or whatever. But now all of a sudden TikTok's there doing that. And the great thing about it is it's organic. It's not happening because the record companies or somebody's promoting it. It's the fans that are doing it. And I just love that. Like I said, I've discovered this band that we signed from China, Mongolia, basically, called Nine Treasures. I found them out on TikTok. They just appeared on my feed one day, and I didn't know what it was at first because it was all in Chinese.
Right.
But I watched it, and it was like, wow, this is really cool. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Rammstein because they sang in a different language. It was kind of heavyish, kind of like Rammstein. But it also has that kind of Chinese. It's like that band, The Who, HU. It's basically their brother band, more or less, same manager, the whole thing. But but anyway, one day the TikTok came up with their name, and I was like, oh, cool. So I went to go follow them on Instagram and realized they had DM'd me about a year or so earlier saying, hey, we're a Chinese metal band. We'd love to talk to you about helping us. So we ended up signing them, and we'll see how it goes. But cool. I think all that stuff's great. And I think it's doing great things for music. It's a massive help in just getting these bands to a next level. And again, I like it because it's just organic. Like nobody's at least at this point. I'm sure it'll get ruined at some point, but it's organic now. So I love that. I think it's
curious, great. Are you guys utilizing TikTok and like influencers on TikTok for marketing for your records at this point, or no?
I mean, we use social media a lot. Obviously, we've got a whole team that does our social media between all of the platforms. We've got almost 3 million eyeballs, I think, that between Facebook and Instagram and X and TikTok. We have a lot of followers. And social media is the greatest thing for us because that's how you get to the fans. That's why everybody knows when a record's coming out, because they are watching everything on whatever social media thing they're looking at, and it's just a big help for us to promote everything. So we probably spend, in terms of promotion, we spend the most on that stuff. Not even just the advertising, just having a whole team there and making sure everything's done. And unfortunately, a lot of bands aren't very good at social media, so we have to help them.
Yeah,
it's a whole other thing.
Guilty as charged over here. Guilty as charged over here.
I get it. I totally understand that. But yeah, I think that all of that stuff makes it and just the ease that people can listen to music now. I mean, like a band like Metal Massacre that we have, which are huge now. Like they're an arena band now. Like every time I see them, they're playing arenas, whether they're headlining it or they just open the whole Pantera run. And they would never be this big. It's a Viking death metal band from Sweden, but because so many people have access to music, and they hear the name, or they saw them open for a band, like you can just, I want to check them out, so I'll just go on, whatever. Again, Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, whatever it is, and listen to it. So that that helps.
This is semi-controversial. What is your preferred streaming platform?
It's tough. So I have two. Spotify and Apple Music are probably my two. Apple Music I like because I actually like to download the stuff so I can listen to it on the airplane, in case there's no internet. But I do love Spotify. Like if I'm when I'm working, I'll have Spotify on my computer because it's easier to look stuff up on there. And I think it's
I agree.
On a desktop computer, it's a better format. But on my phone, I like Apple Music better.
Apple Music, me too. I'm the same exact way.
Yeah.
I'm curious. We talked about artists that you wish you would have signed, but as far as the artists that did end up on the Metal Blade roster, which one do you think has had like the most surprising or potentially inspiring career? Like who's someone you signed and has just like gone on to different levels that you just like, not that you maybe didn't see for them, but just like it shocked you how far I mean, I guess maybe you've brought up Ghost or like Slayer or somebody like that, or maybe I'm on a Marth, but like, was there anybody in particular that sticks out in your mind that when you signed them, they've just gone even further than you could have dreamed they would have at the time?
There's two. So the first one is going to be Cannibal Corpse, obviously, because a band, they're extreme death metal band.
Lyrically and visually and sonically and in every way.
They've been banned in many countries and, crazy. In fact, my girlfriend's daughter's going to see them in Houston, but one of her friends can't go because the parents won't let them go because of the lyrics.
Yeah.
But a band like that kind of this underground death metal band that, kind of came a little bit later in the scene, obviously Morbid Angel and, Death and all these other bands kind of preceded them, but they've become the largest death metal band in the world. And they're also playing arenas and big shows now. And it's just really good because they're really, really good guys. And it's great to see them have this long career, still doing it at a really high level, still doing really well. And, as they get older, there's, member changes here and there, but it's the core guys are all still there. And even just the singer, George, is the most amazing, interesting dude. He goes and he's the claw hammer master. He can literally like empty out a machine. So he has all these stuffed animals, and what he and his wife do is they donate them all to children's hospitals all around the country.
That's awesome.
And he's got 500,000 followers on Instagram just because of that. I have friends in Vegas who are not fans of the band at all, but love him just because of what he does. And it's like the singer for this extreme metal band is doing all this crazy stuff. So I just love that story and love the fact that those guys are still doing it. It's still, again, at a really high level. And it's the most fun for me is, signing a band when they're nothing and seeing them develop over time. And as they go on, this is their career now. They all have, wives and kids and cars and houses, and they're making a living from music. And that's, it's like, that's
pretty
at the end of the day, that's a great payoff for me because that's what you love to see. But there's one other band that's a little bit more obscure, but I love their story because it's just one of these underdog stories. So there's a band called Cirith Ungol.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm even familiar with them.
Yeah, they're from Ventura, California, which, as it is kind of a weird thing. So they were around in the the early '80s, '60s metal scene, and they played around L.A. and they were interesting because they made their own record first, which is pretty rare. They also have Michael Whelan, the famous art guy, does all their album covers, which is also kind of crazy.
Okay,
he's super famous. But when they first came out, I loved them. I thought they were amazing. But they're a very quirky band, kind of progressive, kind of heavy. The vocalist had this like really shrieky kind of mid-level voice. They were definitely acquired taste. They could not get, they opened for Metallica and Slayer and Armored Saint and Fates Warning and everybody in LA, and they could not get any traction. So they just kind of came. They put out 3 or 4 records, which we ended up doing, and just didn't really go anywhere, which was really sad because I just love that band. They're really nice guys. So all of a sudden, cut to like mid 2000s. I start going over, I'm in Europe at some of these festivals, and all of a sudden I start seeing kids wearing Sears Ungle shirts in Europe. I'm like, what is this? I started asking our European guys, said, yeah, they're like becoming this cult band over here, where all these hardcore metalheads, especially who like the more, not the heavy metal stuff, but the more kind of, melodic stuff, started getting into this band. And all of a sudden it starts swarming. Where it's like we're reissuing the records, they're selling tons of records, they're streaming a bunch of stuff, they start getting tour offers. And I remember seeing the singer, his kid was a huge fan of Killswitch Engage, and this even before we worked with Killswitch, but I've been good friends with them forever. He said, "Hey, my son's a big fan. Do you think you can get me tickets and stuff to see them? They're playing in Hollywood." I'm, yeah, of course. So I got him tickets and went to the show, and I saw him. I said, you guys are kind of having this renaissance now all of a sudden, especially in Europe. You think about playing any gigs anymore? I say, we're too old. We can't do it. And so eventually they got offered enough money to play one of these festivals in Europe. They went over and did it. It did great. They all of a sudden started touring all over the world and doing really well. Yeah, we released a record. People who didn't like them before, like my good friend Monty Connor, who's legendary A&R guy for Roadrunner. Now he's with Nuclear Blast.
Yep.
He hated them when they first came out. Like a lot of people did, because he didn't understand it. Now he sent me an email 8 or 9 years ago when this whole thing was happening, going like, I can't believe I missed out on this band. I love them. I'm obsessed with Sarah Uncle now. So
sometimes it's just like it's the wrong moment for you for something to click with you. That's happened. It's happened with me with bands that I already love that they'll put out a record that's different from their previous stuff, and I will be so bummed on a new record, and then I'll revisit that record a few years later and go, why didn't I like this before? Yeah. And all of a sudden it's my favorite record by that band. Sometimes it's just not the right time.
Yeah, and it wasn't for them, but I just love that story because they're such good guys, and it just kind of coming like the ultimate underdog story, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool. You've mentioned a couple, how a couple pretty serious metal bands are arena acts at this point, and it's been a topic of a couple articles that have come out recently, how rock and metal is growing and outpacing most other genres right now in both streams and ticket sales and stuff. And what do you think it is that's kind of leading this, this groundswell towards, music with guitars and drums and, loud in your face stuff? What do you think it is that's making it so popular again right now?
People having good taste in music again.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's, I get asked this question a lot over the years because I've been doing this for so friggin' long. And I've seen everything come and go.
You've seen it come and go a million times now, probably. Yeah.
Well, and there's always a reaction. I always used to tell my friends, so your older brother or sister, they love whatever, the EDM or Taylor Swift or whatever it is. You kind of don't want to love what your older siblings do a lot of the time, or even more so your parents. Who, now a lot of these kids who are 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, the parents are mid 30s, early 40s. So they're kind of into a lot of that stuff. So you want to do something different. So there's always that cyclical part of it.
Totally.
I'm not an analytics guy really at all, but I got sent this. There's a company called Luminate. And what they do is they analyze global music sales. And they do this kind of hour-long deep dive into music sales that they do about every 6 months. So the latest one came out for the first part of 2025. It was really fascinating because, still the leading music genre in the world is hip-hop and R&B.
Okay.
Number one. Number two is rock. We have surpassed pop, which is number 3, and country is number 4. And they go into the details of why that is. And what's really interesting is the largest segment of rock that is influenced how big rock is hard rock and heavy metal. And they specifically named Ghost and Sleep Token, two bands that both had number one albums on the Billboard chart, which is not usual for a heavy metal band. And they're kind of, they're at the forefront, but there's a million other bands coming up. And you guys know, you're doing really well as well, just like all these people are. And it just seems like it's the right time. There's a lot of good rock stuff out there. And even just rock and roll music in general, if you just look at rock music. So there's this guy that I knew of beforehand, but obviously he stole the world at the Aussie Back to the Beginnings, Youngblood.
Yes.
I went to go see him in Dallas recently, and he was really good. I walked away with a lot of respect, and he just changes way better than Sabbath did changes. I mean, he's a super talented guy.
Oh, his performance of Changes is like, it gives me chills.
Yeah, that's why I went to the show, because my girlfriend had mentioned him before, and I was like, I mean, I get what he's doing, but I'm not like super into it, but I wanted to go see him.
Right.
But as an older gentleman, he is not. It's all cool because he's using his influence, but there's nothing original about him. It's Mick Jagger meets Iggy Pop meets Rod Stewart in just his antics. He's got a tremendous voice, though, a tremendous voice.
Yes, absolutely.
And the music is kind of hardcore-ish, pop punk-ish sort of stuff, but it's decent. But I do think he's going to get a big song and he's going to become massive. But the guy that opened for him, which I'd never heard of before, was a guy named Sawyer Hill. And I go,
Unfamiliar.
I don't know who this is. Asked the girlfriend, she said, I don't know who it is. But she listened to a couple songs, said, he's actually really good. We should go early and check it out. All right, I'm game. So not hearing anything. He was phenomenal. Really interesting story. He's a 25-year-old guy from Fayetteville, Arkansas, middle of nowhere. Rock, total rock, great song, great voice. He writes really good songs, got a really cool band, kind of nerdy rock guys, but really good. But he has an interesting story because he's got 800,000 followers on Instagram. I was like, I've never even heard of the guy.
Right.
But what he's doing is there's this company called AWAL, AWAL, which is basically a label for writers without labels, basically. Of course, they're owned by Sony now, and The Orchard, who distributes us as well. But what he's doing is he's only releasing singles as a rock artist. He's got no albums. He's got one 3-song EP, but just all singles, 12, 13 singles. And
I mean, that's the falling in reverse method up until, last year or beginning of this year, whenever it was. Yeah. I mean, and that it worked in Ronnie's favor too.
Yeah. It's just, you see that a lot in pop and look, it's the wild, wild west in terms of how you can do things now. But I thought that was really interesting, but he was good. He's like a legitimate rock guy. And he was saying rock's not dead. Rock is coming back. And, Youngblood's helping lead and he is, but this also other guys really good. I'm seeing more because I love all sorts of music, not just in the rock world, and I do like a lot of rock. I mean, I grew up in the 70s listening to all that great rock stuff in the 70s, so I do like that. I've been seeing more and more and more newer artists doing really good kind of old school rock and roll stuff that's coming up now. So I think with a bunch of new artists doing that and current artists, people a few years ago were like, oh, what's going to happen? All these old bands are going to retire. There's going to be no more people headlining arenas. I go, look, it's just going to be the next generation, the next wave of people. And we're seeing that with, bands we mentioned before already. And it's all coming. You guys, you guys are playing arenas and sheds as well, which is amazing.
Yeah. I had a couple moments this summer going, we just played 30 minutes of breakdowns and screaming inside of an arena. This is pretty crazy. So I want to touch
really quick before that. I think this is an important thing. So what I've learned, and one of the reasons why I think I'm on a mark this so well in arenas is because I got when the first arena they played with, this is 10 years ago, that with Megadeth. They were direct support to Megadeth, and there was Metal Church on there, and I'm trying to remember who the other band was. I forget, but you can put any band in an arena setting.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they're going to play to an arena. Like Metal Church, who I love, and the other band, I can't believe I'm going to forget. But anyway, great bands, but they were club bands playing an arena. They're playing it was a club. But a band like Amon Amarth, they emote like even before they started regularly playing arenas, they emote as a band. They look comfortable playing an arena. You guys did the same thing. And we're seeing more and more of that, that whole, the Kill Switch, Parkway Drive, tour,
the Summer of Loud tour.
Which, playing all sheds and 10, 12,000 people. Same thing. They were great. And that Parkway Drive show was just insane. It's just all the fire
on another
and everything.
level.
Yeah, they are at another level, and such great guys too. And they're another band where kind of in a weird way, like Rammstein was. Rammstein's only had one hit record here, but they play stadiums because the production is so insane.
Yes.
And Parkway Drive's kind of doing the same thing now, where all of a sudden, I was always a fan of theirs, liked them. I'd see them play here and there. Super nice guys from Australia. But now with all this production, like that production, I had to go a couple times to see the production. And the last show I was at was in Dallas.
It's wild.
And they were the closers, which was interesting because, nobody left. Like everybody stayed there till the very end. That's a long day. And my friends who were with me, little older guys, they were like, we're going to leave. I go, you can't leave. You need to stay here to see the end of Parkway Drive. Trust me, you will. And of course they did. And they're like, oh my God, thank you so much for making me stay. So
if you ever get the chance to go see them in Australia or Europe on a headline run, we just did their Australian headline tour last year.
Yeah.
It was their 20th anniversary tour and the biggest headliner they'd ever done over there, sold out arenas. But their production was hands down some of the craziest I've ever seen.
Yep.
I mean, a mini stage with a catwalk that came down from the rafters that they would then go to their big stage. And there was like, at some point, Winston would go on the walkway, it would go up in the air and shoot fire out. And they had choreographed dancers and cello players. It was an actual Broadway production, but set to breakdowns. It was crazy.
I watched it.
Was crazy.
That's when I first saw that. Somebody, somehow a clip came out, not even about TikTok, but there was a clip of when he goes up and they do the breakdowns and Crush. And I'm like, oh my God, this is one. And I've seen a lot. And this is one of the most incredible production things I've ever seen. I told them that when I saw them when on this tour, and I go, how do you come up with this stuff? Like it's so,
I don't even know
spinning
where
drum kit
any
on
of that
fire.
begins.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
Well, that actually, so I want to bring out Parkway is perfect into going where I want to go next is you guys are pretty early into the metalcore bands of the early 2000s and stuff, the As Lay Dyings, the Unearths. I mean, Black Dahlia is not really metalcore-ish, but that first record you guys put out definitely had a tinge of that a little bit here and there. What about that? I mean, that became a pretty big cultural thing for metal. Did you ever expect metalcore to kind of explode the way that it has in recent years?
Well, you can't really predict anything, right? But the 90s were so dark in terms of, where metal was. I mean, it was still, the underground was still great. And we actually had a pretty good run through the 90s with bands like Cannibal Corpse and Guar and 6 Feet Under and Merciful Fate and Kingdom. They were still selling a lot of records, but metal was underground and there was no mainstream. I remember in 1997, I think it was, Rock Hard, which is like the preeminent German heavy metal magazine, had the cover and it was a gravestone that said heavy metal, born 1969, died 1997. I was like, that's kind of serious when they put that out there. But I was, as always, I've always said heavy metal is never going to die, and it's not, and it still isn't. But what's interesting, if you go back in the course of time, and you look at when specifically, I mean, you can look at it in any musical genre, but I think in our world, like every time there's a decade turn, look at 1980, the 80s come, and all of a sudden, Metallica, Slayer, all these bands come in the early 80s and revolutionize everything. The 90s come, it's all the grunge stuff that, put heavy metal in the ground for a little while that came up. So as the 2000s were coming in, you just kind of felt like there was a renewed interest in, some of the older bands and some of the newer stuff. And then we started to hear some of these bands, like the Red Chord was probably the first one that came up. And they were, one of the early adopters of the metalcore scene. And I just thought what they were doing, like, this is so cool, so different, so refreshing. Yes. And then we heard As Lay Dying and then Unearthed and Black Dahlia they just kind of got lumped in there because of the timing a little bit. They all had short hair too, which was kind of the thing, but they were definitely more metal.
The melodic death metal kind of thing. But it was all that like at the Gatesy Slaughter of the Soul type guitar riffing that like Kill Switch was also doing, and also As Lay Dying, and they just Black Dahlia definitely took it in a more death metal direction. But I always put Unhallowed probably to their dismay in the metalcore category because it definitely was slightly tinged in that way.
that's one of my favorite debut albums of all time.
It's so good.
Love that record.
It's so good.
I think that was the first time I had ever heard vocals like that, and I was just like, "Whoa, what is this?"
Trevor was on another level.
It was
absolutely
insane.
on another level.
And
Yeah.
one of the
It was insane.
nicest human beings ever, too. And
Yes,
it's sad that he's not
absolutely.
with us anymore. But
is
it just felt exciting. And the thing that was really fun for me was, all these bands are a lot of them, like you said, at the Gates, and a lot of that stuff influenced them. But they were starting to really get into like Iron Maiden and
Yes.
all of these kind of, and even the 70s stuff like Thin Lizzy and Rainbow. And I remember one time Phil from As I Dying said, "Hey, can you make me a CD of like all the best Thin Lizzy tracks?" I go, "Hell yeah, I can." And they all of those bands started to go back and listen to that stuff. And then because a lot of times up until then, bands were very guarded with what their influences were and what they listened to for some,
Right.
I don't know why, people being competitive or whatever. But these bands were like, we want to shout out, we love Iron Maiden, we love Deep Purple, and we love all these other bands, and those were our big influences on us. And once they started talking about that, all of a sudden all of those bands started experiencing kind of a renaissance around the same time. And it just fueled this whole scene where all of a sudden there were all these young kids coming up, these young bands doing really cool stuff, and that was fueling the older bands to be better and be more creative, and just this whole scene started happening, and you could just tell something was really cool about that. It was just fun in the early days going to, I forget, I'm trying to remember the whole bill, but I think it was Unearth, Red Chord, Black Dahlia, and somebody else, but it's like 4 incredible bands that all ended up being huge. They're all playing like 800-seat club tour.
Right.
It's just insane.
Right.
And all the shows were sold out. The crowds were insane. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, they really kind of, that scene, pretty much turned around metal.
Yeah.
I saw
totally.
all those bands at the Auto Bar back in the day. It was
Same.
fucking unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah,
Same.
it's
And
crazy.
that was a great time for music.
Yeah, and you just kind of feel the energy of stuff like that. You can just kind of feel like, oh, this all feels really good and really organic, and these kids are all just music fans and really great people. And really kind of, I've talked about this a lot, but the other thing that really revolutionized the business, and why I think over the last, 25 years since then, or 20, whatever, was the hardcore element of it. Before that, metal bands were pretty competitive. And, not everybody liked each other, not everybody liked to tour with each other, not everybody rooted for each other. And it was what it was.
Right.
But the hardcore mentality, and I'd never, I liked hardcore, but I was never by any means like in that scene very much.
Sure.
But I started meeting all these people, like the managers and agents and all these guys who came from the hardcore world that were now kind of coming into my world, and how refreshing it was. And even the bands, like everybody's rooting for everybody, everybody's friends, the agents and the managers all have the same attitude. They're like all for everybody. And if we can help this band out, even though I don't work with them, it's so great. And I just love that. And most of those people are still around today. They're the biggest agents, like Nick Storch or Tim Bohr, management, like, Von Lewis and Katie Gabor and, the 5B guys, like they all came from the hardcore movement, and they moved into, my metal world a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
But that's so important, because if we don't have that business background of all these great people with the right attitude, then, as you well know, like people ask me all the time, like, why did this band why did this band fail? Well, you have to have a team. Like if you don't have a team, if you don't have a manager, an agent, a lawyer, and a record label all on the same page, it's like a car with 4 wheels. If all 4 wheels are going in the same direction, it's going to go really fast. If one of those wheels isn't moving, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
And so that's become so important. And another reason why I think that the whole scene's been so big and it come around and still is really big, because we got all these really great people and coming from this background where it's, we're all in this for the right reasons.
Absolutely. I mean, that was an era of music, and I mean, I guess I didn't really consider the fact that, the hardcore, like, I don't know, brotherhood thing of it all kind of really did play a huge part in all of that. And it certainly has, I guess, kind of colored the way that I kind of move through everything and how I view working with other bands and other people. Yeah, that absolutely is a big piece of it that I don't know why I just never even connected those dots.
It taught us a sense of brotherhood and loyalty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that wasn't really there in metal for the first, up until then. Really, it was not every man for himself necessarily, and there were good people
Yeah.
and good bands, but I had never seen that amount of just rooting for everybody, and like you said, the brotherhood and the sisterhood. The whole thing was just so refreshing for me. I was like, this is a dream, and all these band guys are just, everybody's like so easy to work with.
I feel like I take the mentality of is that we're all here for the common goal. So if the goal is to continue to build these bands and build careers, and byproduct build our own careers, So
and look, at the end of the day, we're all fans. We're all fans.
Exactly
we all came from the same
it.
background. We're all, that's why we all do it. And I think one thing that I do love about the metal world in general is just, that bonds us all together. And why, you can, if I brought you guys in to talk to Metallica tomorrow, you guys would bond instantly because you're just all fans. And they're like,
Chris would not bond because we would be having to pick Chris up off the floor.
Look, I would hold it together.
He would faint.
All right. Well, of course, it's not announced yet, so we can't say anything specific. But if they do end up playing Sphere, and hopefully they will, we'll get you to a show, and we'll get you to meet a couple of the guys.
Chris is peeing. He's peeing. You can't. Good thing you can't see below his waist.
Nope. Josh, you're making me. You're going to scare him out of the idea of making this happen. I need you to
No, it's all good. It's all good.
No,
Listen,
that would be cool.
They're like the nicest guys.
Oh, I believe it.
What keeps you motivated after all these years of being in the business? What is it? What is it that keeps you motivated and keeps you excited?
I love music. I love the music. I still love the music. I still love to discover a new band or a new artist or somebody I didn't hear about before, or even bands that I do like putting out great music. Lately, especially since there's no hockey at the moment, this is the worst time of the year. Although we did get football back at least, so something.
I had a rough night last night, but we got football back.
I never used to bet. Like, I live in Vegas, but I don't gamble at all. I've been following Jim Rome for a long time and become, I guess, acquaintances with him. But he and this other guy that they like talk about betting on football, and I've never bet on football my entire life. But they're kind of like, it's just fun to do because you have a little bit of skin in the game, and it's kind of like, all right. So I started doing it just for fun. I'll pick like 5 games and bet $10 a game. I'm not a big better, but it is kind of fun to do. But I went one, and between college and NFL, I went 1-5 the first weekend, so it was a little tough.
I grew up in Baltimore. Chris is from there. We're diehard. I'm a diehard obsessive Ravens fan. Got Ravens tattoos. I got a problem. Openly admit I got a problem. One of my guys texted me last night and was like, "Hey, I lost $50 on this game because I bet on the Bills, and this is at 3 minutes left in the game.
They had a 99% chance to win."
Yes, and they came back and lost, and I was just like, "You've got to be fucking shitting me."
I was at a sports bar with all the NHL guys, and we were at that point. The game was kind of over, so we're just talking about a bunch of different stuff. But kept looking up, and then all of a sudden, it's like, "Oh wait a minute! Oh my god!" Like it was.
Yeah, it was.
That
crazy.
was insane. Sorry about that.
It was insane.
But I'm not sorry
rough.
Because the Ravens are a really good team, and Lamar Jackson is phenomenal.
They'll get it together.
And look at Derrick Henry. I mean, it's like a man playing with children against him.
Unbelievable.
They're good, and they made a couple mistakes at the end there, but they're going to be in it. They're going to be in it at the end of it, so don't worry about it.
They'll figure it out.
Well, we've been chatting for a while, so we'll slowly start winding down here. But I do have a couple more for you, and
sure.
And this is one we like to ask a lot because Josh and I both really struggle with this. But like, how do you go about? I mean, it sounds like your life is pretty engulfed with music from like at all times, and being that that's your job, like how do you balance like I'm handling label stuff now and now I'm doing my personal life stuff? Like, do you have an easy time kind of separating those two parts of your life, or is it all kind of just smashed together at all times?
It's interesting because I don't have any kids, so that kind of makes it a little bit easier for me where I don't.
Right. Sure.
If I had kids, it would be a whole different story, but I just, for whatever reason, never went down that route. So that makes it a little bit easier to balance things. Like I said, do have a personal life that you have to. One thing that I do notice over the years is that two things. Like I would never date anybody that's in the industry because that's just. I did that before and it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And somebody that's got to be very cool with, because I travel a lot. I'm all over the place, and the label of my career is the most important thing. I hate to say that, but I'm lucky enough at this point where I'm in a good spot with that, and it's pretty easy. That part of my life isn't too stressful anymore, which is good. But it is kind of just, you do have to make time for yourself sometimes, and that's why. again, for me, like hockey is that's my therapy, basically.
That's how I am for football.
Yeah, and football too. I mean, I'm a huge football fan. So Sundays I'm happy there's almost a game a day now, which is,
I know it's gotten to that point.
Tomorrow night's then one night. Well, there's no football.
What's tomorrow? Tuesday.
Tuesday
night. Yeah.
That helps a lot because I can just like watch that and get away from the whole music part of thing and just the whole, because it's a pretty intense thing, and I tend to be pretty intense about a lot of stuff. But as I've gotten older, it's a lot easier, and I'm lucky enough that I have a phenomenal staff that they make my life so much easier now. I'm a control freak.
I'm feeling that way a little bit. It's challenging to let go.
Yeah, for a long time, I needed to have my fingers on everything, like just the marketing and everything.
I can relate to that.
Yeah,
that's how I feel.
But over the years, I've kind of pulled back from a lot of stuff because they do all this stuff so great now that I don't really need to worry about any of that. And
is that what it took though? Finding
the right people, yeah.
Finding a solid staff that you knew you could count on, because I am to the point now where I'm starting to bring people onto my team, and I'm scared to let go. And it's not even so much that I don't trust them. It's more so like it took a while to get here, and it's I'm just afraid. Thinking about it out loud now, I guess I'm afraid of failure, and if I let go,
you're less in control of your destiny.
I'm not in control of my destiny, so it's hard for me to do that. Even though for mental stability, I know that I need to, and I bring people in and pay people to let go of certain things, but it's just such a challenge to feel comfortable with the idea of, I guess, not being in control of my destiny.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. It took me a long time to kind of get to that point. But once you do have good people and bring good people in, that does make it a lot easier, because at some point you can start trusting them a little bit more. Right. And, you just, as time goes, you give them a little bit more responsibility. And as long as they keep not messing it up,
right.
You're in good shape. But it is, working with good people, no matter at what capacity that is the most important thing. Again, if you don't have a good team around you, just like in sports, if you don't have a good team around you, you're not going to do very well. It's the same in any business, really. So, but yeah, it's hard to let go. It's taken me a long time. I still do a lot of the big picture stuff, and I deal with a lot of the big bands and whatnot. So there's still a lot going on, but. But yeah, some of the day-to-day stuff, I just kind of was like, I don't really, they do a good job. I don't need to bother with some of the day-to-day stuff anymore. But it took a long time. So, but just hire good people, vet them out as much as you can. And
if you weren't running Metal Blade, what do you think you'd be doing?
Like I said earlier, I was probably journalism at some point, because I was.
Sure.
Yeah, I always loved doing that, and if I could, even sports journalists, like because I figured I was going to do either music or sports, because I'm a big fan of both of those, but it didn't work out. I'll do articles here and there. Like, I'm really lucky I get to do stuff with the NHL here and there. Like, I've done some.
That's cool.
Done some writing for them. I've done some interviewing with them. I've been on all the radio shows and everything. The only place I haven't been on yet, which I'm kind of annoyed about, because I was supposed to be on a couple times, I've not been on the NHL Network yet. Well, take that back.
You got to make that happen. Yeah,
I take that back. I have been. I was on when the Knights were in the Stanley Cup Finals a couple of years ago. I was.
Oh, cool.
I was on NHL Network one time, but I've been on all the other stuff they do in podcasts and things. So, but yeah, I probably would have been somewhere, hopefully, doing that sort of stuff. I'm not a morning person, so a real job would be very difficult, and I cannot stand wearing suits.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Me either.
Actually,
me either.
Slightest.
Black t-shirts.
Yes,
I don't like it.
That's my entire closet.
So I know we don't have a crystal ball of any sort, but what do you see as like the next decade or so for heavy music? Like, where do you see it heading? I mean, it feels like the future's pretty bright, at least for the moment, but like, I don't know. How are you feeling about rock going past the future of where it is right now?
Well, it kind of comes with a where is the industry going part of thing too, because I think right now, I think rock and metal is in a great place. I think there's, like I said, there's a ton of really good new bands that we're the second largest genre in music sales. We are the number one genre in ticket sales. around the world.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy to think about.
When you look at, Taylor Swift and Morgan Wallen,
Right.
we're still above them, even though they have, two of the biggest artists in the entire world.
Right.
So so all that stuff is good. The only thing that I'm a little concerned with, although it seems like it's getting better, is so several years ago, a lot of these venture capital people started coming into the music business, and it became very cool for them to like buy labels and buy publishing and buy all of these things. And they're buying stuff at a rate where they were these, again, people not in our industry are coming in. The people that know how to do these things were gauging where the business was going to go and how much money it was going to be creating 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. It was based on a lot of things with streaming getting bigger and people being able to stream more and all these things. And those predictions have not quite lived up to what they thought they were going to be. It's all good. And, Spotify had a really good year, but, Spotify, I talked to them mostly because they're the largest streaming service. So kind of whatever happens with them happens to everybody else. And, they still aren't making money as a company, which is a little worrisome. I think they've got a little sidetracked with all this podcast stuff, which also, because of some of their podcasters are very controversial, they've lost a lot of people. I have tons of friends of mine who don't agree with some of these people say, and they're like so pissed off. They're like, getting out of their Spotify subscription. So that's not the smartest thing to do either. But it is growing. They did have a really good quarter last time. So I just look at the overall music business, because as good as the music is, if the business isn't in the right spot, then that's going to hurt it. But it seems pretty good. I think we're in a pretty good place now, and I think that people are just used to the streaming stuff, and it works for everybody. And like I said, as long as Spotify and Apple and all these other people don't screw it up somehow, I think we're good for now. I think the music in general is in a good spot. Like I said, I think the rock and metal, the fastest growing genre right now. I mean, at some point it's going to reach a crescendo, I'm sure, and start to
totally, yeah.
It's just the way it always is. But I think it's good, and I just love seeing the fact again, all these newer artists are headlining and playing arenas now, which was
definitely.
Like you told me Ghost was going to be playing arenas when I first heard them. I knew they were going to be big. I didn't know they'd be this big this fast, but it's amazing.
It's definitely encouraging, because I know it's another one of the common conversations over the past couple of years, at least specifically around like festivals and stuff, is like who's going to be our next generation of headliners because everybody all the older generation are aging out and retiring, and and I think that there was definitely a concern about will this generation have artists who can step into those spots?
Yeah, well,
right, and
now
so
we are.
Sleep. Right, so Sleep Token has shown that they can headline a day of download, and Bring Me the Horizon, Falling in Reverse is for sure going to end up being one of those artists at some point here. Bad Omens probably also, like, so there is some, I think, exciting stuff happening for the genre as a whole, and hopefully they'll be the bands to lead us into the future.
The only thing that I'm concerned about with it, and this is just the U.S., it has nothing pertinent to do with Europe or even Australia, is the festivals over here in the U.S. Mm-hmm. We've never quite done it as well as the Europeans do it for whatever reason. There's a wide variety of factors there. And it for whatever reason in the US, maybe because there's not really standalone stuff like there's Coachella and Stagecoach, which do great every year, but they're not really in our world. But the stuff that Danny, and I love Danny Wimmer, and God bless him for doing all the stuff he does. But it just seems like, whether it was Ozfest or Mayhem or Sounds of the Underground, like you do these things, or even Warped Tour, you do these things for a number of years, and then it just stops working for whatever reasons.
Right.
And I'm kind of seeing that now. I know, I just know the economics of some of these things and how they, work or don't work sometimes. So in the short term, I think we'll be okay, but I just don't know 2 or 3 years down the road where these US festivals are going to be at.
Do you think there's a shortage of bands? And the reason that I'm saying that is because you see these festivals continue to grow as far as width wise, and by width I mean like instead of it starts at Saturday, Sunday, then it goes to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then it goes to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You understand what I'm saying? So then it becomes a situation where you have a lot of repeat bands every year. So the festivals then become the same lineup wise, with the exception of swapping out the headliners, because the festivals are, it's obviously built around, it's got to be money driven because everything is a business and everything is money driven. But these, the festival is I mean, maybe they have to do it because the costs are getting higher and the bands are demanding more and yada yada. So by doing that, they got to do. You understand what I'm saying though? Yeah. Like, is that a purpose of a reason why we're seeing that?
There's no one specific reason. I think part of it is the bands definitely are getting used to being paid a lot of money and want a lot of money. I think there's plenty of bands. You look at what Wimmer and some of these other festivals here. I mean, there's a zillion bands on all these festivals.
Right.
So I don't think, because you look at festivals like Coachella, for example, or the European festivals, like they sell out every year before you even know who the hell is on it.
Right.
So they just know it's going to be a good festival. It's more about the experience. Yes, like if you have a good time going to a festival, you enjoy going there, it's well run, it's reasonably priced, all of these things, then you'll go almost no matter who's there. You'll know there'll be good enough bands. So I don't really know that the bands drive the ticket sales to the festivals as much as the experience at the festivals do. Just for an example, like, look, I'm an old guy and my festival days are a little bit older or a little bit over at this point. But I went to that power trip thing in Indio. I've been to Coachella a couple of times and I quite enjoyed it. That was a lot of fun. I was there when the favorite one was Muse, Faith No More, and Coheed were the headliners in one day. That was insane. And a whole bunch of other great bands. But I went to that power trip thing, and it was just a nightmare. Like, I paid a ton of money to supposedly have really good tickets to see Iron Maiden, and they were 1,000 miles away. They were ants on a stage. I was watching them on a screen, and it took 45 minutes to get to the VIP area, which I spent extra money for. And, at 112-degree heat, that's not super fun to get to. And then you couldn't buy water. It just, the whole thing was the most unorganized thing I've ever been to, and pretty much everybody said the same thing, which is why they're never doing it again. So that's why I think that it's just important to create a vibe at these places that people want to go to, and they do it great in Europe. I mean, every festival I've been to in Europe is phenomenal.
Great in Europe.
It's like clockwork.
Yes. Yeah, it's literally the best of the best.
But other than that, I think everything's in a pretty good space now. I think the business seems like it's in a pretty good spot now, and some of the younger people coming up. We're distributed by the Orchard, which is owned by Sony, which is an independent distribution company. But they're really good. They're really good people, and they're like younger CEOs and stuff, which is good, and they're great. So.
Awesome. Was going to ask what's next for Metal Blade.
I mean, same old, really. We're just trying to sign a bunch of good bands and keep everybody floating out there well, and trying to do what we can do. I mean, it kind of feels weird for us these days. Almost there's more pressure because we're the only independent label left of all the big labels. Even just talking to some friends of mine, it's really for big independent labels. It's just us and Epitaph are the only two rock labels left that aren't owned by majors. Everybody else is owned by majors. And you're starting to see Nuclear Blast cut back or Century Media cut back. And that concerns me because, they're not our competitors, they're our partners, really, because we need as many of these good labels. Look, there's a bunch of upcoming labels, which I think are really great, and I'm super excited about what they're doing. I'm hoping they're going to kind of morph into some bigger stuff as well, because they're like, honestly, all of the kind of new up-and-coming metal bands now are all coming from these small little independent labels that they'll find a band like Twitter Stab Wounds, which we had, started out, on a small label, and now they're starting to blow up. And that's the case with, so many bands these days. So for us, we're just trying to do our thing. We're trying to help those sort of labels along a little bit too. Like if we end up signing a band that was on there, we want to make sure we promote them and let them know what's going on. Like I'm seeing a show shortly. It's kind of like that. So, but that's a little bit pressure just because I'm like, well, we're the last one standing here, and I'm not selling to any major because I just don't care. It's not worth it. Not worth it at all. Because I've seen all my friends do it, and then all of a sudden, I can wake up in the morning and decide what I'm going to do. If I sell to somebody else, I'm going to wake up in the morning and call a guy in a suit, say, "Hey, can I do this now?" It's like, forget that. Right. No desire to ever do that.
Have they tried?
Oh God, yes. We've been offered tons of money here and there, but I mean, I'm comfortable. I don't care about money. I drive a Honda Civic. I don't care.
Amazing.
Like, I'm fine. I have a very nice lifestyle. It's very easy. It's all good. But what am I going to do? Somebody's going to give me a bunch of money. I'm going to buy some gigantic mansion, sit there and twiddle my thumbs. It's like, no, and then you'd lose employees and you'd lose band members. It's just not fair to any of them. Not going to happen.
Totally.
We have a whole succession plan and everything.
Well, let's now jump into our lightning round we call the day sheet. I'm just going to throw a couple questions at you. Just hit me with the first thing that comes to mind for each. First concert you ever went to?
Kiss at the LA Forum in 1976.
Damn.
That's so sick. That's so sick.
That was a good one.
Real quick story. So the Ghost Inside, we got in our bus accident in 2015. The last show we played in Europe in 2015 was Download. Kiss was on their farewell tour. Our first show back in Europe in 2022 was Download. Kiss was still headlining on that same farewell tour. It's my favorite thing ever. I love it.
My first CD was the greatest Kiss album. It was Santa Claus put it in my stocking.
Nice.
Incredible. Favorite Metal Blade album cover?
Oh, wow. Cover. That's interesting. I don't know if everybody's really asked me that. I'm going to do this. So we, as a famous artist named Ken Kelly, who's, one of my all-time favorite artists. He did Kiss Destroyer and Kiss Love Gun and a million things. We did a 20th anniversary box set, Metal Blade 20th anniversary box set, and we commissioned him to do an original piece of art for that. So he did this really cool Grim Reaper for the front of that. So just because I'm such a huge fan of his and he did such a great job, I'll pick that one.
That's awesome. Dream collaboration you would love to see happen of any sort, either bands that you would love to see collaborate or a collaboration that you would like to do with Metal Blade and someone else in the industry, and any sort of collaboration you would love to see on the creative front.
Wow, that's really interesting. We've got a lot of collabs, so I'm pretty happy with that sort of thing. Let me think. Musically, I'd love to see. I mean, it would never happen, but you can wish, right?
But this is a dream scenario, so it's okay.
Scenario.
I know. I want to see Iron Maiden do a collab with Amon Amarth. Just because they're friends, Mon's played with Maiden, and I think it would be interesting take to see what that would sound and look like.
Yeah, that would be cool. Coffee or tea?
Probably neither.
Wow.
I've never been a coffee guy, so if I get sick, sometimes I'll drink some tea. So I guess tea in London's really good.
Okay. Not the answer I was hoping for, but I'll take it.
Sorry.
You might be the first one that said that.
Speaking of collabs, we have a new coffee collab coming out soon too. So.
Interesting.
Oh, okay, very good.
Who'd you guys do that one with?
We're doing
can you not say yet?
Concepts Coffee, who did they did the Dave Lombardo one, Cannibal Corpse, Guar, a whole bunch of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, they're good guys.
Sick. The one record you think every metal fan must own?
The greatest record of all time, Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast.
Easy. Beer, whiskey, or tequila?
Oh, wow. I don't drink beer.
Okay.
I used to drink whiskey, probably tequila. I like tequila. One of my best friends is Kerry King, and he's a tequila guru. So probably some tequila.
Amazing. All right, and last one. Favorite band T-shirt you own?
Ooh, wow, that's really tough because I have like thousands of them. I'm gonna say just because it's kind of rare. And the first time I saw this shirt, I didn't really know it existed. I mean, I guess it kind of made sense it existed. Was I saw Kirk Hammett wearing it, and I recently was able to get it. It's a Scorpions Tokyo Tapes T-shirt, which is really cool looking.
Sick. Are you into like hunting down vintage band like tour merch and stuff?
I'm a collector, so I have.
Sick. Okay.
I have a house for my music. I have a house for my sports stuff. I have 2,000 hockey jerseys. I don't know how many T-shirts I have. I have more than if I wore a different one every day for the rest of my life. I would probably still not go through all of them, and I still buy stuff.
Yeah. Naturally. Yeah.
I have that problem with sports memorabilia. I'm fucking awful.
Yeah, I finally stopped the sports memorabilia stuff because it just got out of control.
That's how I feel. I can't stop. I try.
Yeah,
I put myself on restriction and I break it every time.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm also a collector though.
Yeah, I do that. I do that with vinyl now. I'm starting to run. I have an entire house for my music collection. I'm starting to run out of room because they keep reissuing all this cool vinyl, and I can't stop.
That's the main reason that I don't start with vinyl, because I know I won't be able to stop. The only vinyl I have is all of the variants of any Ghost Inside record, because if I know once I start buying, it's game over for me.
Oh, it's bad, yeah.
I have an embarrassing amount of comics in my basement because I'm a comic guy, and when I started, it just never stopped, and I know it's a slippery slope if I go down vinyls. It just is. So I have to stay away.
I don't have an addictive personality that like I've never been into drugs or alcohol or any of that stuff. But when it comes to sports memorabilia, I don't know what it is. I just love to have shit and music memorabilia. I just like to collect shit that I don't know. I think it's cool. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, same thing. I've never done drugs. I'm not an addictive personality, but I do love to collect.
I like to collect.
Too. So I hear you. It's so bad. I have, like I said, I have 2,000 hockey jerseys still, but at one point I had about 3,000, and it was just ridiculous.
Are they signed jerseys, or are they just jerseys that you wear?
800 of them are game worn.
Okay.
Some of them are
So
signed. I got, Gretzky signed, Gordie Howe signed, Mario Lemieux signed, Yager signed. But I had so many of them, it's kind of ridiculous. So I was talking to the Violent Gentleman guys. I said, I got all these jerseys. Like I need to scale back here because I have like doubles and triples and a bunch of stuff. Because I used to get all this stuff on eBay back in the 90s when it was cheap. But anyway, so they said, well, why don't you like give them to us? 815 jerseys. Give them to us. And they did what they call a mystery bag jersey. And they sold them for like, I think, $35. And we gave them all to charity. We gave them all to
That's awesome.
Animal rescue in Orange County that they work with. So I think because it's like 800 some odd jerseys, we gave them like $50,000-$60,000 worth of stuff.
That's awesome.
That was great. And as you guys know, they're the best dudes, the VG guys.
Yes, they are.
They're awesome.
Yes, love that game.
I too like to get the game used footballs and game used just shit I don't need. You know, I
finally somehow, I don't know how I got off of that thing, but at some point I just like, it's just enough. I mean, it's just
I'm telling you, I've been at that place about 4 different times, and then I just keep. My wife is like, you continue to move shit in and out of this room. You need a bigger house because all of the shit. So now my guest room is piled full of my shit that I gotta stop. I need help. I'm admitting it. I need help.
Yeah, vinyl. I'm kind of that way with vinyl now, where I got back into vinyl. Everybody keeps reissuing all this amazing stuff that especially old stuff that I love.
Stop.
I know.
Can y'all just fucking stop?
I don't know. Rhino does such a good job. I don't want them to stop because they keep putting out really cool stuff.
It's a problem.
Yes.
All right, listen, last question. If you got a 5-minute phone call right now with Brian from when he was working on the Metal Massacre record, what would the message be?
Oh, good God. Trying to think. Well, I mean, I learn from your mistakes, which I did. It took me a couple of times to figure that out, but always learn from your mistakes. Definitely do not give up at any time, because there's a few times you kind of get to the point where you're just like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm good at this. It's like, just keep doing it. And I think the most important thing is just trust your gut. Because it took me a long time to, you just, I don't know, and you hem and haw about things, and your gut would tell you one thing, but somebody else, or you'd think something differently. And every time you go against your gut in general, it just doesn't work. So I just say, just trust your gut and go that way. It'll make your life a lot easier than if you don't. Look, if you keep doing this for the love of it, it's all going to work out.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
That's one of the better ones, I think.
Absolutely.
I ask that question to everybody. I find it fascinating. That's how we wrap every episode, and I find it fascinating, and I think that's got to be one of the better ones. So
thanks. Sage advice.
Yeah.
Sage advice.
Yeah, well, it's, I've been doing it a long time, but I'm just trying to think now, like, okay, what? Yeah, okay, I learned a few things over these years, but that would be an interesting conversation.
I would think you have, for sure. Well, Brian, thank you so much for giving us so much of your time, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, no problem, man. It was a crazy Monday for me, but it slowed down, and now I've got enough time to get to the Bears Vikings game on TV.
Coming up.
On TV.
That's coming up. That's coming up.
Fair enough. Well, we'll chat with you again soon, hopefully. Take care, man.
Yeah, man. Good to see you guys. And when we're all in Vegas
brother.
at some point, we should all do a dinner.
Absolutely. That would be great. Hey everyone, Chris here, and I just wanted to take a second to say thanks for watching today's episode. You can check out more episodes of Late for Load-In on the right side of your screen and find any applicable links to this episode in the description down below. There you'll also find a link to our Patreon, which is the most direct way to support the show, and it's only $1 a month. Please consider giving this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to follow us on all social platforms, at Late for Load-In, at Chris_TGI, at Josh Carell. See you guys next week.